What did you make of this approach? It is a big debate coming up, presumably a draw or a win for him, in that, very hard to judge sort of way these debates go, would be a huge result given where he is in the polls. Is this a fair enough approach? Does it show that he has to really do his study to make sure he doesn't stuff up, for want of a better description?
Yeah, look, I think Joe Biden got off easy in the first debate. The president did most of the talking. The president sort of did most of the over-talking. He'd be better to let Joe Biden speak more this time, actually outline what his party's platforms and policy are. We'll see, what the focus of the debate is. There's some discussion about whether it will include foreign policy or not. The Trump campaign very keen to do that so that they can start wielding the ammunition they believe they have on Joe Biden's connections in the Ukraine through his son Hunter, and some suggestion that the debate commission doesn't want it to be focused on foreign policy. It's certainly unusual to have a campaign that's so focused on foreign policy in this late stage, but this is an opportunity for Joe Biden to really lay out more of his campaign, but they want to keep the focus on the president himself, his personality and his fitness for office.
I guess as well, it's interesting to read about the Trump campaign briefing out that he's going to give Joe Biden enough rope. Now, that means Donald Trump not talking for long periods of time. So we'll see if that actually happens. But that would mean he has to really explain what happens on the Supreme Court and the possible stacking of that. That perhaps he gets into, this weird story to do with Hunter Biden's laptop. And, the details on this are pretty sketchy, to be frank. But these are the sorts of times that the campaign wants Joe Biden to actually have to go into more detail.
And they want him to articulate what his plan for the economy is going to look like, how the Green New Deal won't upend some of the return of US manufacturing that's happened in the last administration. They want him to explain a bit how he's going to keep some of the more extreme forces in his party at bay. So I think that is the right strategy for the Trump campaign to adopt. Whether the president can be disciplined and surgical and on the stage, not jump in and take over and do his usual performance, I think is a challenge. We have seen him at times stick to the script, but it's a bit of a rarity for President Trump. He's a unique character.
He's certainly that. You can see another Trump rally is due to begin. So on Donald Trump, yes, he's got the media spotlight, if you like, to himself. At the moment, it's resulted, though, in quite the war of words between him and Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci going on the record saying things such as he wasn't surprised Donald Trump caught COVID, also livid at being used in a Trump campaign ad. Here was Donald Trump on this campaign phone call to do with Anthony Fauci.
People are tired of hearing Fauci and all these idiots, these people that have gotten it wrong. Fauci's a nice guy. He's been here for 500 years. He called every one of them wrong. And yet, we keep him. Every time he goes on television, there's always a bomb. But there's a bigger bomb if you fire him. But Fauci's a disaster. This guy, if I listen to him, we have 500,000 deaths.
The saying is sometimes there's always a tweet. In this case, well, there's actually a time when, you could hear Donald Trump bemoaning. He's always called a nice guy. Well, guess who did that once upon a time?
And it's worth keeping in mind, this is a confidential campaign conference call link-up, which a whole bunch of journalists were listening in on and live tweeting. He knows he can't push out too far on Fauci. Already we've seen this morning a few of his own senators tweeting support for Fauci. Senator Lamar Alexander, who it's worth noting isn't up for re-election this time around, tweeting quite strongly his support for Fauci. But the president, I think, is sick of not being able to control the narrative on the pandemic. In his Prescott, Arizona rally this morning, he was again talking about, we're sick of talking about the pandemic. It's okay. I've got the cure.
Yeah.
We're going to get the cure to everyone. Which in itself is quite an extraordinary thing, a Republican president effectively talking about a free and universal medical solution for Americans.
Oh, that's a good point. We'll just play you as well. This is what Donald Trump had previously had to say about Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Fauci's a very nice man, but we let him do what he wants to do. He gets a lot of television. He loves being on television, and we let him do it. Sometimes he says things that are a little bit off, and they get built up, unfortunately, but he's a nice guy. I like him, but he's called a lot of bad calls. He said, don't wear a mask, and he said, don't ban China. They were bad calls. He admits that, and I don't hold that against him. If I did, I wouldn't have him.
As ever, there's some truth in there. Anthony Fauci has said, for example, that initially there wasn't much evidence that wearing certified, these P95 masks might not help, and he changed his mind. But also there was an initial concern masks would run out. Anyway, as usual, the fact checkers are busy. But this campaign blitz, what are your thoughts, James? Is there a sense of a shift? Donald Trump out there certainly defying what people previously had said about his health, able to be at these rallies, and yet some pretty bizarre stuff. Again, it's not the first time he's spoken about water pressure, and the mums of America will have their dishwashers firing on all cylinders as well.
Yeah, look, the president is using his health and his recovery from COVID as a campaign asset to paint himself as this strong leader who can get through any crisis. We have seen a little bit of movement in polls in Pennsylvania. I think that's really interesting to watch. Biden's lead coming back there. Pennsylvania is a key battleground state for this election, maybe one of the two most important states in this election, 20 electoral votes up for grab there. So that's worth watching. The momentum is back with the president, but, I still don't think he looks like he's confident, and the people around him don't look like they're confident at this stage. The numbers are coming back slightly, but they're still going Joe Biden's way.